Good evening. I'd like to call to order the February 25th, 2020 school board meeting. I'd like to invite Dr. Jordan Rodriguez to the podium, please, to introduce our invoker.
Good evening. Jami Camacho is a Seminole High School senior who just turned 16 years old. His family migrated from Puerto Rico just a year ago due to the economic opportunities in the States as well as enhanced education. He came stateside. These situations did not stop his growth mindset. He has continued to thrive socially, artistically, and educationally. He is a very talented artist. He loves to draw, playing the ukulele, public speaking, which he will showcase shortly, and acting. He has a twin brother. Both young men were diagnosed at an early age with ASD. They have an emotional support dog who helps them with anxiety. He loves nature and appreciates its silence. Recently, he joined our archery team, which is in its first year of existence. He has found that this sport helps him to focus. He is a passionate reader. Within the first year, he passed the FSAs, EOCs, and received concordant scores for his SAT. He was also exited from the ESOL program. His dedication and responsibility have earned him a position as part of our school's honor society. Without further ado, Yamil, join me.
Good evening. Superintendent Dr. Griffin and school board members. My name is Jami Camacho, and I'd like to start off by saying that I'm not your typical 16-year-old. From a young age, I was diagnosed with ASD, also known as autism spectrum disorder. This limits my understanding and execution in social situations. As a result of this, I enjoy myself when I'm alone, and I like to focus on the little details. As a result of this, I joined the archery team. This helps me improve on my focus. I was born and raised in Puerto Rico. I loved it, but as we all know, all good things must come to an end. The aftermath of the hurricane made me realize that life is not all peaches and cream. The hurricane forced my family to move to the United States to look for economic stability and for a better education. Moving was a big big step for me because, yeah, I knew the language, but I was scared that someone would misunderstand me and I would ruin a friendship. But there was a voice in the back of my head that told me not to give up, so I listened to it. I'd like to thank Ms. Rivera and the ESOL program for giving me the tools and strategies to be successful. As a result of this, I passed my FSAs, passed my EOCs, and met with the concordant scores for the SAT in my first and only year in the ESOL program. I've also worked in the community, participating in food drives and participating in Seminole High School Theater Company plays. Thanks to my determination, I was accepted in the school's National Honor Society, and I am a proud member of Troop 3266. I thank all of you from the bottom of my heart for providing me and many others with a safe place where we can be ourselves and thrive in our respective fields. Now, stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Yeah, thank you, Yami. We're so proud of you. Congratulations. Let the record reflect that all 5 school board members, superintendent, school board attorney, and school board clerk are in attendance this evening. We have no forms for acknowledgement. Dr. Griffin, do you have any agenda modifications?
Madam Chair, I have two items. The first is the addendum for good cause is marked on our electronic agenda by a green flag named addendum item. And the second, I'm going to pull item 2B, that is the addition financial check presentation. This presentation will be made at the March 10th, 2020 school board meeting.
Thank you very much. School board members, any modifications? Member Sanchez?
No modifications.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Member Kraus?
No modifications.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Pinnock?
No modifications, but I would like to request an update from Dr. Wysong on his trip to Tallahassee regarding CTE certification programs.
Thank you very much. Member Calderon?
Done for me. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you very much. Can I get a motion for approval of the agenda outline?
So moved. Second.
Second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion carries. Dr. Griffin?
Have some recognitions.
Thank you.
Good evening. I would like to introduce our Veteran of the Month, Mr. Nathan Polly from Keith Elementary School. Mr. Polly enlisted in the U.S. Navy in 1987 and was selected for the Navy Nuclear Power Program, a program that trains students in the science of engineering and fundamentals to design operations and maintain of naval nuclear propulsion plants. After boot camp, he completed Nuclear Field A School for electrician mates and naval nuclear power schools at the Naval Training Academy in Orlando, Florida, which is now Baldwin Park, and then nuclear prototype training in Ballston Spa, New York. After his training, Mr. Polly was stationed aboard the aircraft carrier USS Theodore Roosevelt in Norfolk, Virginia. He served as a member of Roosevelt's reactor department for 2 years and was assigned to the Engineering Electrical Division and later the Reactor Electrical Division. He performed routine electrical maintenance on the reactor and the electrical generation distribution system. As part of his duties, Nathan qualified to operate the ship's nuclear propulsion and electrical distribution systems. He achieved the highest level of qualification for an electrician mate load dispatcher, who oversees and directs the operation of the ship's nuclear electrical distribution system during normal and emergency ship operations. During his time aboard the Roosevelt, he was deployed for 6 months to the Mediterranean Sea and another 7 months over the Caribbean Sea and the Atlantic Ocean for training and normal fleet operation. Mr. Polly transferred to the USS Enterprise CVN-65 during the first Desert Storm expedition. Nathan served in the U.S. Navy for 6 years. Mr. Polly was drawn to teaching in 1997 while dividending in his wife's 5th grade classroom at Pinecrest Elementary School. He did not seriously consider a career change until a few years later when he decided to pursue an elementary ed degree. Nathan graduated in 2004 and was hired to teach 5th grade at Keith Elementary School. Mr. Polly has spent 14 years teaching 5th grade at Keith Elementary School and now has switched to physical education. Mr. and Mrs. Polly both teach at Keith Elementary School. And Mr. Polly joined tonight by his wife, Mrs. Polly, of 30 years. Also, his Mrs. Polly's dad from Fort Myers has joined. He drove up here to join us. He is also a 22-year veteran of Seminole County Public Schools. Mrs. Polly teaches 5th grade ELA. They have been fortunate to work together at Keith for the past 6 years. Mr. Polly is thankful to Seminole County Public Schools for recognizing his service in the U.S. Navy. He is also thankful to the Seminole County Dividend Program, which actually allowed him to assist Catherine and brought him to teach in the classrooms within Seminole County. Thank you, Mr. Polly.
I get to do the next recognition. Yesterday was a rather formal, prestigious, large event where they recognized 20 women in all of Central Florida, and it was titled Women Who Mean Business. And one of our board members was selected, and hearing them talk about her, you realize what a servant she is to the public, and what an advocate for Seminole County Public Schools and for public education as a whole. And I was so proud to be there, to be part, and to see Tina Calderon recognized. Congratulations, Tina.
Hi, welcome, Jamie.
Good evening. By board member request, I would like to provide you with a brief overview of the district's responsibility to support private school students, families, and staff using federal grant funds. The requirement for equitable services began with the establishment of the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. Within ESEA, as amended by ESSA, Titles 1, 2, 3, and 4 must provide equitable services. Similar provisions are also found in IDEA and Perkins. Under these acts, school districts are required to provide services to private school stakeholders as a proportionate rate to that of public school students. Each year, the district reaches out to nonprofit private schools within Seminole County to invite them to participate in our programs. Ongoing consultation is also a requirement under the law. Resources or services offered to private schools align with the federal purpose of each grant. For example, Title I services low-income students with academic need within private schools who would have otherwise received those services at their zoned Title I school. Title II provides professional development support of private school teachers. Amounts reserved for these services differ by program. For the most part, funding is established on a per-pupil basis, following a set calculation per federal guidelines. In some unique cases, such as 21st Century Community Learning Center programs, stakeholders are invited to participate in activities alongside public school students. Funds set aside under these programs are not provided directly to private schools as pass-through dollars. Instead, the district maintains these funds at all times. Note that only a fraction of the district's total private schools actually participate in our programs. In the current fiscal year, approximately 2% of the district's $33 million in total non-competitive federal funding is allocated for services to these private school stakeholders. Thank you for allowing me the opportunity to provide this information.
Thank you, Jamie. Any questions? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, time for focus on student achievement. And then Dr. Wysong, if after this you will address Ms. Pennock's request. Thank you.
You're right there, okay. Good evening, Dr. Griffin and board members. Dr. Gard-Harold and I are excited to give you an update on two of the academic initiatives that we share along with several others at the ESC and in partnership with our schools. These two initiatives address different academic areas, but they really have two things in common. The first is both are multi-year strategies that are designed to position our students, all of our students, in a good place for their futures. And then also both of these initiatives are really designed as equity strategies to ensure that all students have access to interdisciplinary content that in other places students might decide that pathway isn't available to me or isn't an option for me. And of course in SCPS all pathways are open to all students, and so we're excited to update you on the progress. The first piece we want to talk about is Computer Science 2020 and give you an update on where we're at. This work began in the 14-15 school year with a task force that Dr. Griffin created that was multi-department, multi-school, a lot of business input as well. And what came out of that work was a business plan to do a K through 12 computer science implementation in our school district. And this project really has been jointly owned by ePathways and Teaching and Learning and Information Services, and the three departments together with a lot of assistance from classroom teachers have really developed this full sequence out. The great news is that we are exactly where we said we were going to be when that report was produced in the 14-15 school year. And so 19-20 is the second to last year of that business plan. And so currently all elementary students have access to about 10 hours of computer science instruction. In many classrooms we're going beyond the 10 hours because the classroom teacher is providing additional extension opportunities or making additional linkages to math and science standards, which is wonderful. And then in our middle school, all three of our blended learning I-Series courses now incorporate computer science instruction. And of course, students who are really enjoying computer science can take either a semester-long or a year-long computer science course that locally we call iChallenge. And then finally, at high school, we've always had AP Computer Science A available to students. The College Board, of course, added AP Computer Science Principles, and that's growing in popularity in our schools. And then next year, as the final plank of the business plan, we'll add a CTE Computer Science option leading to industry certification at each high school, and students will be able to choose really off a menu of multiple options, including doing the industry cert courses and both AP Computer Science courses if they so choose. We want to take a moment really to thank you because the board has funded this work both in terms of equipment and the cost of curriculum development. We're very proud of the fact that all of the curriculum that's been developed was built in-house by our teachers. We have not purchased any products. There are no annual licenses to support. We have compensated teachers for building those lessons, training other teachers, and we'll be able to continue to support. And so the exciting piece is that as this business plan wraps up next year, we're really moving from a growth mode to a sustain mode, and we feel very confident that we can sustain this work for the long term. And of course, as you'll recall, your new strategic plan that you adopted last fall includes metrics related to tracking the enrollment growth that we should see in AP Computer Science courses as the original elementary students progress into secondary. So we're excited to be on track with that work, and again, definitely a multi-department effort. And so as we see the light at the end of that tunnel, Dr. Griffin has challenged all of us to take the next step with our next academic initiative. And we really started this conversation about 12 months ago, and to see it already happening in year one is very exciting. And so as you know, we are moving forward with a K through 12 physics initiative in order to ensure that all of our students have access to an advanced STEM discipline. This is another subject area that is tremendously important in terms of opening doors and career pathways for students. And it's another one that sometimes students can be intimidated by if they get to high school and don't really understand it or have access to it. And so again, like with computer science, we're going to run with the strategy of starting in elementary school and then exposing students there, getting them excited about this content area, and then pushing that forward into middle and high school with some unique implementation options.
So as Dr. Weissong mentioned, we are working toward really building equity for our students. And so as we were diving into this initiative, we wanted to make sure that we had the opportunity to do it right. And so we partnered with Dr. Antonelli Glashenko at the University of Colorado and also Dr. Paul Cottle to make sure that what we're doing for our students is right. And so what we've started with is a pilot of the mechanics lessons for physics, and we are doing the physics in a box, and we're doing that pilot at 4 of our middle schools right now, and we allowed the middle schools to choose how they wanted to implement. And so, for example, at Sanford Middle and Markham Woods Middle School, they have a elective semester long for the students that the students can opt into that. And then at Indian Trails, we have that in our 6th grade intensive math class as a way for the students to really apply those math skills to the physics. And then at South Seminole, they're applying that in their 8th grade intensive math class. And so we'll have the opportunity now to learn from those 3 classes to say what fits best where, and maybe what makes the most sense for the future.
And so the other pilot project this year, one that each of you is very familiar with, is our new physics bus. And I'll just share an overview for the benefit of anyone that may not be familiar with the project, and then I'll talk about some of the progress we've made since the ribbon cutting about 30 days ago. So the notion of the physics bus is essentially a mobile learning laboratory. It's an opportunity for students to take a field trip out to the bus ramp and engage in science and mathematics learning. One of the goals of the physics bus is really to provide a customized visit to each of the 37 elementary schools. And this semester, we'll start with a specific group of schools, and then next year, the goal will be for the mechanics physics bus to visit all 37 elementary schools within the school year. But at each school, the visit will be a little bit customized because, of course, school size is different. Where each school is in their curriculum progression is different, and the group of teachers and their principals' needs will be different. And so we're really doing a lot of pre-work prior to the bus pulling up at each school so that we can customize the instruction a little bit, although in all cases, of course, it's very aligned to science standards. So the curriculum on the bus is targeted to students in 4th and 5th grade. Again, we're using a lot of materials graciously provided by Dr. Glashenko and his team. Additionally, we've had other exhibits and activities that have been procured and then developed by our teachers. And so that's kind of the menu from which schools will pick when the bus visits. There were 10 different departments involved in the conversion of the bus from a yellow school bus to a mobile learning laboratory. And I think that was a great opportunity for operations and instruction to really work together on a project that benefits student academic growth. So it's very exciting and I think personally gratifying for a lot of people to have this opportunity. Bus One launched, as you know, with no operating dollars used, all private donations and grant funding from a variety of donors. Again, a great deal of support from Dr. Glashenko and his team. So since the ribbon cutting in mid-January, the bus has now visited 6 schools. And so as of today, we think we've had between 1,200 and 1,300 students go through the bus during the school day. We've also had some activities where additional students have been able to visit. Again, we're already having a pretty significant impact. And of course, under the leadership of our project manager, Faith Whittingham, we are extensively documenting lessons learned from these early implementations, and then that will drive our development of Bus 2, which will be an optics bus, and that'll be up and running by January of 2021. But even since mid-January, what the team has worked on is developing pre-visit guides for teachers so that they can understand what's going to happen when their students visit and provide some pre-instructions. We're also talking about future use of the bus for teacher PD in the physical sciences. Because of the external interest in the bus, we've built a little reservation system so that the bus can visit other venues. The bus has visited the Business Advisory Board meeting, and we'll also, this Friday, we'll be at the Foundation board meeting so that board members can see what's happening on the bus and what we'll be doing. And then finally, we learned a lot in creating the bus about different ways to shorten the schedule and save some money, and so we're confident that we can build or convert Bus 2 more quickly and at a lower cost even than Bus 1. So we're excited about all of that. Here are just a few photos taken from the first couple of visits. Again, the bus has gotten lots of positive comments about the external look. We went for something flashy, but also professional, something that would look interesting to students. But that can also go to community events. And then there are activities both on the outside and inside of the bus. And in particular, one of the things we're finding, or that our instructor is finding, is there are also opportunities to reinforce calculator skills, use of the timer, so many of these pieces that are important baseline skills for future math and science work. And of course, all of the experiments they're doing are very aligned to standards because we want teachers to feel like the time the students are spending is well invested time. So we'll continue to work on that, and again, we appreciate your interest and your support for that project.
And so those are all the things that have happened thus far. And so where do we go from here? And so for right now, we have started with the 6th grade, or we've done the pilot of the mechanics lessons. And beginning next year, we'll have mechanics lessons in all of our 6th grade comprehensive science classes. So all of our 6th graders will have the opportunity to access that content while we're also working on the development of the optics bus. And I did just a little cheat sheet for all of us because I am not a physicist. And so when we talk about the mechanics bus, that is the levers and pulleys and ramps and all of those. I'm sorry, inclined plane, I've learned, not a ramp. So when we talk about mechanics, that's the type of physics that we're talking about with our students. So that will be next year that we'll be working with that on our 6th grade classes. And then the following year, we'll start working in all of our 7th grade classes with lessons on optics, which is really about the distribution of light, both visible and invisible, and how we see that light. And so that's a really cool one to do with the kids simply because of the prisms and the light spectrums and all that. So that's a really flashy one for the kids to see. And while that is being launched in 7th grade, we will start with the next physics bus, the final physics bus for electricity and magnetism, which I'm challenging Joe Rinaldi to have a bus full of magnets and not have something go wrong. So we'll see how that goes. I'm sure he's already got a plan. And then finally, in 2023, we will start the electricity and magnetism units in 8th grade, and also start on how do we now beef up what we're doing with the elementary students so that it's not just the physics bus comes to my school a couple of times a year, but how do I integrate that into my lessons? And also now we will have kids that will have had physics in 6th grade, 7th grade, and 8th grade, so you better believe that by the time they get to high school, they're going to expect to have physics. And so we look forward to providing those opportunities for them. It's been a nice opportunity for all of us to collaborate, and we look forward to continuing to support your initiatives and your goals because they're right for kids.
Great presentation, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Board members, any comments?
I have one.
Sanchez.
One of my questions is the customizing a list for each of the school of the physics bus. Can we see the list of the curriculum that you're doing on each of the different school visits? And also, I know it goes with our curriculum, but I just kind of want to see how you are implementing it per school, depending upon what the teachers and the students are able to do. And I wanted to see if how many students are able to be on the bus at one time, and how do we do the rotation of that?
Great questions, thank you. We'll be happy to share, based on the pilot this semester, what the lineup looked like. Again, there's customization happening at each schools, and sometimes it's at the activity level, but sometimes it's also how much time is available, how many classes are there, and so, you know, what types of things do we prioritize, and we are keeping notes there, because then one of our curiosities is, will it be the same priorities and kind of the same lineup next year, or will things kind of continue to evolve? So we'll be happy to share that with you. In terms of students who can be accommodated on the bus, there are 8 physics boxes that are on the bus, 4 on each side. And so then there are also activities outside.
Okay.
So in most cases, you would have the classroom teacher would bring their class down, and then we've got the physics bus teacher and the classroom teacher kind of working together to handle that supervision and instruction of both activities on the bus and off the bus. But then, of course, things like weather can affect that plan, right? And so we have to be flexible and willing to adjust. And again, part of it at this point is just our best guess as to how many days it will take to serve one school, because right now we're taking the approach of, if we can do an entire school in 3 or 4 days, can we do that consecutively? And then, of course, sometimes you can't do that because there's an event at a school or some other circumstance. And so it's really a learning semester for us. But as I said, so far so good in terms of our ability to get through a school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The other question I had, real quick, is that okay? Thank you so much for all the mechanics programs that are going in and implementing them yearly for all of our middle schools. Are we still trying to work on the large fleet internships, since last year it really didn't go as well as we wanted it to go for the bus depot?
In terms, are you in terms of internships at transportation?
Yes.
Yeah, that's ongoing.
Okay.
Transportation and other departments were part of the Fall Expo, and I'm sure they'll be back in the spring.
Right.
We have a couple of additional things we're working on in terms of transportation, working a little bit with our auto collision teacher on some kind of individual work that can be done there. So,
Thank you.
So yes, that partnership is definitely ongoing. We appreciate all the support from transportation to get this
They've
physics
been
bus up
amazing.
and running.
Yes, thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Yes.
Question real quick. Did we find a bus driver for the physics bus?
I wanted to know.
Also an ongoing project.
Still looking?
And again, we've been very fortunate that because of scheduling, transportation is providing drivers, in some cases, people who are between runs and other places. We've even had administrative staff making sure the bus gets to the right place. We did an additional interview this afternoon. It's something we continue to work on.
Thank you. So Dr. Wysong, if you could give us an update on a brief update, your trip to Tally and CTE.
Sure.
Thank you.
Just as a reminder, 1920 school year is a bit of a transition year for career and technical ed. We have new federal regulations as a result of the reauthorization of the Perkins Act, and we also have Executive Order 19-31, in which Governor DeSantis has called for a multi-year plan to get Florida to the #1 workforce education state in the country. And so on the one hand, we're very excited for all of the attention that career and technical education is getting. On the other hand, there are always lots of implementation details, and some ideas sound great on paper, but then add complexity when you try to implement them. And so that's really what we're working through. The specific issue that resulted in my trip to Tallahassee, along with probably a dozen of my colleagues from other districts, is that the industry certification funding list, which is generated by CareerSource Florida and approved by the State Board of Education, was up for a complete review for 2021. It's kind of like zero-based budgeting. You take everything off the list and you have to reapply. The process started about 6 months ago because each district had to resubmit all of its certifications. So for Seminole County, that was 49 certifications, required 147 different letters from industry partners in order to justify those 49, along with a pretty in-depth application process in partnership with the certifying agency. In the middle of January, all of the districts were notified that based on the state level review, there were going to be pretty significant changes to the list. And that obviously created a lot of concern in terms of the impact to students for next school year. As a result of additional dialogue with DOE and CareerSource, we and other districts were able to get some of the not recommended certifications back on the recommended list, but there are still some impacts for Seminole County students. Again, about a dozen of the career and technical ed directors went to the CareerSource Florida board meeting last week and gave our public comment in addition to some one-on-one meetings with CareerSource Florida board members to try to educate them about our implementation concerns. At the end of the day, they voted to adopt the staff recommendation, which is to move forward with the list that, again, will have some impact on our programs and students next year. One of the things we learned after the meeting, perhaps as a result of the advocacy work that was done, is that an additional transition year would be put into place. However, we didn't have a lot of details as of last Thursday, and my request and the other directors of the chancellor is we need this information in writing as soon as possible so that we can recalculate impact and really figure out a strategy for moving forward. And so earlier this afternoon, we received a memo indicating that the two largest impacts, which is our Microsoft Office certification program and our Adobe Creative Specialist certification program, would be subject to a transition year so that all students would have one additional year to earn certifications under the current rules before we move to the new rules. That's very good news because it gives us a year to work with our teachers and our program administrators on what we're going to have to do to take the next step forward with our program so that we can continue to serve students. So the transition is, I wouldn't call it a complete victory because I wish we could have persuaded them that the current 1920 list is really high quality, and I believe that it is, but some policymakers believe they need to raise the bar, and we'll have to figure out how to leap over it, and at least now we have the time to do some of those things. So I will keep you all updated because there are still some nuances to the transition that I think we're hoping to educate some of the state staff on in terms of impact and an opportunity maybe to make the transition period even a little bit easier and less adverse in terms of impact to districts and teachers. So we'll keep working on those things. We have a part of the memo we received today indicated there'll be a webinar on March 13th, so right before spring break, and then we will take that information and kind of process and then really start working with our teachers and school administrators on what we're going to have to do over the next 12 months to be ready for the 21-22 full implementation. But I truly appreciate your support, and Dr. Griffin, your support as well in terms of the ability to work with the other districts to try to improve the situation. So thank you.
Comments or anything? Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Weiss.
Board members, just real quickly, I know most of you know last Friday we were in Brevard County, and there's 6 districts meet every couple of months, and Dr. Weissong, the representative from Brevard County, did a great job to get all 6 districts on the same page. So just a better voice for our students and for our hardworking teachers.
Thank you.
And I think, thank you for reaching out to Allie, and thank you to Allie for representing us so well in Tallahassee. She worked so hard for us. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we've not received a request from anyone to speak for public comment, but I've asked, since we've had a lot of social media and TV interest in a situation at Seminole High, that we have it addressed tonight just briefly. So for clarification, Ms. Beeman, if please, followed by Dr. Rodriguez.
And board members, I do want to clarify for you, because there's been some miscommunication of roles and some of the things that have been put out in regards to the Seminole High School. And what I want to make clear for you is that there is not a pending employment decision for either the board or the superintendent. And so in these situations, when there is an allegation of employee misconduct, that conduct is investigated or addressed by our HR department. The HR department will provide a recommendation, if it is one that would lead to suspension, to our superintendent, and your policy and the collective bargaining agreement that has delegated to the superintendent the authority to suspend an employee for up to 5 days without that issue coming to the board. And so in this case, that's what happened. The recommendation came from the HR department to Dr. Griffin, and he suspended the employee for 5 days, and that was the letter that went out. That letter is in regards to his employment contract with you as a teacher. Separate and apart from that is the supplemental role. In the supplemental role, as far as a baseball coach, that decision, whether to provide a supplement to an employee or not, is a principal decision. And so there was a second letter from Dr. Rodriguez in regards to the supplement role for that employee. And so what I want to make clear is that that is a decision that Dr. Rodriguez had the authority to make, and he had the authority to rescind. And so those are the two separate actions, none of which have any implication for the board at this point.
Thank you very much for that clarification. Dr. Rodriguez, I understand you made a statement earlier today, and we were not privy to that statement. We were in meetings, so we would love for you to read that.
Understood. Hello again, everybody. This statement was released earlier this afternoon. It goes as follows. After careful consideration and a review of all of the facts surrounding the entire baseball decision, I've determined that the 5-day suspension without pay, in addition to being relieved from his baseball duties to date, is consequence enough for the acts. As a result, I've made the decision to reinstate Coach Kenny Brown to his position effective immediately. Moving forward, Coach Brown has been directed to model his behavior in a fashion that is in line with the high standards of the Seminole County Public School District.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll move on to consent agenda. Superintendent, do you have a recommendation?
Yes, Madam Chair, my recommendation is that the consent agenda be approved as presented.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you very much. No items removed for separate consideration. Dr. Griffin, do you have a recommendation with regard to discipline hearings?
I do. My recommendation is that the School Board of Seminole County approve the student disciplinary recommendations from January 27th, 2020, February 3rd, 2020, and February 11th, 2020.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Approve. Motion to approve?
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Motion passes. Thank you. I'm not aware of any unfinished business or new business. Okay. Your report, Superintendent?
They're read-only, but again, I want to give kudos to Mr. Godrow. Once again, he figured out a summer schedule that finishes the end of June. I can tell you, two former executive directors prior to him I was not able to do that. It always seemed to go after the 4th of July, so I think that's good for our families and for our kids. So good job.
Fabulous. Before we go to board committee update, Ms. Beeman, you need to request an executive session.
I do. I am in need of advice concerning pending litigation against the board, and as such, I'm requesting an executive session take place on March 10th in the matter of Jamar Rivera versus School Board of Seminole County, case number 2019-CA-00308008L. The request for the executive session was included in the calendar action item that was presented in the book tonight, and with that approval, we will look to have that closed session at 2:30 on the 10th, and outside counsel, Ms. Cindy Townsend, will be present to participate in that session.
Thank you very much. Board member committee updates, Member Sanchez.
First, I wasn't able to attend the Central Florida School Board Coalition meeting a couple weeks ago, so I'm waiting for the minutes to come in, and it was a last-minute cancellation, so I apologize we weren't able to get somebody else there. But as soon as the minutes come through, I will give a report at the next school board meeting for that. I have a VAB meeting tomorrow, along with my orientation with that. And just wanted to let you know that we all had such a phenomenal time with our World Language Festival, ROTC Gala, and all the different events that happened this week. And kudos to everyone for doing so much work, our executive cabinet and everybody that is employed by Seminole County. We really appreciate you all. And, you know, I know it's a thankless job at times, and we just want you to know how much we really appreciate you. And Christine and I had a chance to go to a conference yesterday, and we left a little early today, but with the All Together Now, the I had it perfect.
LGBTQ+.
Yes, I had it perfect before, now all of a sudden I don't. We learned an awful lot, and we'd love to share it with anybody that's interested. And our GROW program that we're doing with Spring Lake this weekend, we still need students, so if anybody's interested or has a student that wants to participate for Bright Future Hours or Community Service Hours, Spring Lake's beautification is kind of in between the walk, so I'm not sure how many, we're not able to get a lot of students, helpers, but we really need some if anybody can go. And also, kudos to Goldsboro Elementary School for the exploration ribbon breaking ceremony and all the books that they bought. I loved it. More books, 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 books in every school is my goal.
Thank you. Member Kraus?
Thank you. I would like to first acknowledge that our vice chair is celebrating her birthday here with us all tonight. Happy birthday, Amy Panic. Thank you for being here. I had 3 committee meetings, the School Health Advisory Council. There was a huge emphasis on nutrition and programs so that older students, middle and high school students don't feel intimidated about taking food home for weekends and so forth. And there, I'll bring the information to each of the board members. I have handouts. That was very insightful, and our dining services presented as well. So it was good to have you there also. Business Advisory Board, as Dr. Weissong indicated, he did a whole fabulous presentation. They were wowed. They were absolutely wowed. We got to actually do some hands-on experiments with the physics bus, and the response was just wonderful from our business community. And then I attended the Children's Cabinet, and their main topic this month was on trafficking and how that's way more prevalent than any of us know. And I will get a PowerPoint is supposed to be sent to me. I haven't gotten it yet, but I will share that with all of us. Very, very alarming. And I enjoyed the conference, the All Together Now conference, and we hope to do a work session with you all to share some of the data and information. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Chairman Pinnock.
We didn't have any committee meetings since our last board meeting. However, I do want to recognize we did have our Teacher of the Year celebration. Congratulations to Will Furiosi. Such a wonderful celebration. And 2 weeks ago, I believe it has been now, Dr. Griffin and several of the cabinet members and I took the opportunity to tour City of Lake Mary mayor and commissioners and managers and police and fire and many other support staff, and through some of the city, or through all of the city schools. Great learning experience for them. very eye-opening for them, very challenging for them to get in and out of some of the parking, which was a good push point for them to understand the challenges that we go through and help work through maybe some of the traffic issues. So if down the road you can have that opportunity to do that in your areas, I encourage you to do that. It was great to forge that partnership on both sides, and it was well received. Thank you.
Thank you. Member Calderon?
Our zoo is still going forward with education as their main goal, and continue to receive grants that are going to allow all of our Title I students to attend the zoo for free. Plus, they've increased their professional development for our teachers as well, so that's been a passion of theirs. And if we have anybody listening, they have now opened up their registration for the spring break camps. So if you have family members who don't have anything to do for spring break, the zoo has great programs every single day that week, and they'd love to host you. The other thing is I had the opportunity to attend the Sheriff's Office faith-based community team meeting, which was on human trafficking, and I'm going to have our clerk make copies of the handouts that we received. I concur with you, Mrs. Kraus, that it's alarming the amount of children and adults that are trafficked within our community. The top 3 in the nation, unfortunately. I know we like to strive for being number 1 in a lot of areas, but this is one that I'd prefer not to. And I want to send personal congratulations and thanks to Dr. Walsh and her entire team. I had the ability to go to the community leadership meeting this last Friday, and I hung on every word that was shared with that group. I thought that we all knew everything about the Student Support Services Department, but they are consummate professionals caring about every single student, and to have the community leaders understand in a more deep level what we're doing for mental health and support services for not just the students but their entire families. I think that's how we're going to change the future, move the community to a healthier and better future. And speaking of wellness and health, I look forward to seeing you all on Saturday morning at our annual 5K Walt Walk, which is sold out from all of our employees and their families. And I'm honored to work with the board that focuses on wellness for all of our team, because we know together we're stronger. So thank you.
Thank you. Insurance and Wellness met. You all get copies of the information. If you have any questions, ever reach out to Dawn Bonds, and she'd be glad to address them with you. Mayors and managers talked about the interlocal agreement, which hopefully in our lifetime we'll see signed. They talked about school zones, and there seems to be a lack of understanding of that process. I asked Dr. Griffin to talk about that. Unitary status, a little overview of why we don't have just single neighborhood schools in all of our areas. Sonia will see where that goes. And they're still wowed by the physics bus, so I hope we can bring it there. Daughters of the American Revolution gave out scholarships to students from Lake Brantley, Lake Howell, Lyman High School, and Oviedo, so thank you to them for supporting these students. And we all went to the Regional Science, Math, and Engineering Awards ceremony. Some brilliant young people within our school district and community that are already, some of them are already reaching out to patent their ideas, and they're going to help people and save lives, and it's awesome. And let's see, the Association of School Business Officials International awarded our district an outstanding financial report, so kudos to all the people in the Finance and Budget Department for that. And with no further business, this meeting is concluded. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Here, wait, guys.